I'm here with artist Janet Takahashi, and we are exploring all kinds of cool stuff today, right? We're doing these, they almost look like batik to me, but you said it's really easy just using Frisket and watercolor.
Yep, we're doing patterns today.
Cool, so let's get started.
All right, so this is a freeform pattern that's just done very loosely. And then here's another sample of layers of resists and washes.
So we're speaking of resist because Frisket is a type of resist.
That's right. So everywhere you put the Frisket down, everything underneath it stays. And
so that's how you were able to get like the white
right.
under those.
Yeah, and then there's double layers. So this is another layer where the watercolor was already underneath it, and it retained that where another dark layer went on top of that.
So cool.
It's like multiple layers. And then here is a sketchbook page, and it shows the pattern on the letter form T, and there's also pattern in the background. So your pattern doesn't always have to be readable.
So what you're saying is you did not create these white lines with like a white pen or something. That
right.
is Frisket creating a resist.
That's right.
Cool.
Yeah. It's really lots of fun.
And of course, there are lots of different tools that we can use to, apply the Frisket.
That's right. So there's 3 tools here. One is a ruling pen.
Which I've never heard of, and I assume it's not because it's a pen that rules the world, but it's because it's some kind of ruler?
It makes lines, rules lines. And so this is the Frisket in a larger bottle, and I pour it off into a smaller bottle.
I assume for travel or just because you find it easier to deal with.
And so I'm gonna pour it into this well, and I put a little bit of watercolor in there so we can add some colorant to it.
What?
Yes.
Wait, you're blowing my mind. I was like, why are you, I usually just stick a brush straight into the Frisket, but you're saying you added some water and that, oh my gosh.
Yep.
Wait a second, I'm getting it now. It means you can see where you have applied it. You are seriously an evil genius.
And then I'm going to use this little cover to cover it, to keep it. So it'll last for hours.
So that's actually just like a stamp block, like an acrylic block.
That's exactly what it is.
Perfect, that's so clever.
So I'll dip this in here first, and you can see with the ruling pen,
nice, straight, perfect line.
That's right. So on this sketchbook page, I did that with a ruling pen, like 2 lines when I was traveling.
And that's how that red line in the center is nice and perfect.
Exactly. Then I'm going to wipe that off, wash it off.
Now, if the Frisket were to dry on your tools, would it harm them?
You would just wait for it to dry, and you can scrape it off, pull it off. And with a brush, as you'll see, with this brush stroke dipped in Frisket, I can make a mark, I can make a swashy mark, and then I can paint on top of it, let it dry, and then pull it off, and then you can see what's underneath it.
Cool.
And so then with this, it's really important that I clean a synthetic brush well, and then I could either put it in some soap.
Some brush soap.
Yes.
Which is one of those things that every artist ought to have, because you never know.
True.
I'm terrible with my brushes, but this is one of those moments.
Really
You gotta be a little bit better.
So we have that, and then we also have a Frisket applicator.
Which looks like a brush, but it's not.
That's right. So you wet it first, and then you wipe it off, and then you put it into the Frisket. And what's great about it is it could draw.
Because it's kind of hard. That's what I mean when I say it's not like a brush. It's a little harder.
Right. Yep.
And you can see that. So it almost writes more like a pen nib than anything like that.
Yeah. And then when this one dries, you can just use your Frisket remover and pull that off as well.
And I was gonna say, here we can see that we've got some dried Frisket and a couple other things here. So what are we doing?
So what we're doing is we're doing this pattern. And the way we get to doing this is we're gonna draw it first with a pencil and then put the Frisket down. And we put the Frisket on in layers, so you can do the larger shapes first and then fill in with the smaller.
And I see that on this last one, if we look here, I can see that because you have the blue here and the white here, we can see it clearly. So do we get to the fun part of applying the watercolor?
Okay. So we have, so you can see how I put the Frisket on already.
Yes.
And then with this one, it's a local direct color, which is like this when you paint it on.
Okay.
And then another one is doing a gradation of color. And the third way is to just do a color mix. And it's just by putting colors together and letting them mix on the page.
That's what I like, because you don't have to think too hard.
That's right. So we'll do that with this one.
Okay. Now you're not going to use the same brush that obviously you've put into the
That's
frisket.
right.
You're using a
Yeah.
fresh brush meant
Fresh
for
brush,
watercolor.
Right, that's right. And I also have a fresh water that's not the frisket water.
Ah, I see. So the water you cleaned in, we just want to get rid of that
That's
over
right.
here and not somehow mix it in with our
Exactly.
watercolor paint.
And then we'll take some watercolor.
So you've got your watercolors, and I noticed that you like to tape down your watercolor paper.
That's right.
And what's the reason for that?
So that it lays flat, because you're wetting the paper, so it'll have a tendency to want to curl. And
now you're doing this on watercolor paper, I would assume?
this is a watercolor paper.
Okay. And now, of course, does it matter what kind of paper you used when you're working with frisket and watercolor? Can you use
You
any
can-
paper?
Just about any paper. What bond paper would be, it doesn't hold the watercolor very well.
I see, because it's got a coating
That's
on
right.
it.
So we'll just do an overall. So I'll just put some color down.
And I can see the resist starting there, which is it's
Exactly.
beating up in the areas where the frisket is, and it's just sitting so nicely in the places that the frisket isn't. Janet, you are a brave woman mixing blue right in with some of those hot colors.
It's fun to do that.
I agree. I think sometimes, you know, this is one of those great ways to experiment with color mixing, see what you get. But I noticed that you are staying out of the yellow area to keep that the integrity of that
true.
color.
Yep. And then you can also like move it around.
You
Look
can have
at-
fun with it.
Exactly.
You're using your artistic license to do exactly what you want.
So then after that, let this dry completely, and then you pull it off.
And again, to pull it off, what we're talking about is just rubbing it, right, with an
That's
adhesive
right.
eraser, but you can actually even use your finger
That's true.
to go ahead and get it
Yeah.
off.
And so what you would do is this would have frisket on it, and I would just take this and go across it like this, and it would stick to it and just pull it off.
And like
then it
magic,
would
that
look like
white
that.
is revealed. And if you
Exactly.
wanted to do your double layer technique, you'd simply go in now on top with some watercolor and draw it, or you could
That's
go
it.
in with some brush pens and add another layer as well.
That's true, yeah.
I think if we just look at the samples, you can see that you can
Yeah,
get
you
this
just lay it on
really
top.
intensely colored look,
Right.
and then you can actually trace some things, and
That's
you don't
right.
actually have to know how to draw.
That's it.
That, I'm always looking for a tip where I don't actually have to know how to draw. Thank you so much, Janet. This was absolutely fantastic.
That's great.
And I feel really excited to use my own artistic license to make all kinds of things.